Welcome, everybody, to the show. Joining me is my usual collaborator, Dan the Dancing Man. And joining us as our special guest is the man, the myth, Carl Creeder from the Wargame Boot Camp. How's everybody doing tonight?
Did you see he announced it? He said my last name correctly, Dan. Did you see that?
No, he didn't say it correctly.
Dan's Canadian. He can't pronounce anything correctly. He put Z's in Carl Parody's name. And I don't know if that's correct or incorrect, but Carl doesn't do that. So,
there you go.
I'm just going by that. Carl's scratching his head when, why does he keep saying it like that? I don't understand.
What's John saying here?
He's going to have a cow. Is there a cow in the room with you, Carl?
You know, I never understood that. Don't have a cow, man.
No cows, man.
So today we're talking about block war games. And that's why Carl is going to kick it off. Go ahead, Carl.
What?
Okay.
What? I didn't prep for this.
Yeah. Well, we are playing PQ17 tomorrow. So I am actually playing a block game tomorrow.
What's the game, Carl?
It's called PQ17. It's from GMT.
Oh, I didn't know that was a block game.
Classic block game. Yeah. So there's a couple different kinds of block games, right? There's kind of the classic Columbia block game style where you stand the blocks up and one side's hidden from the other person. And we have requests from the Peanut Gallery. And then there's like games that just happen to have blocks, right? Like Sekigahara, although I think Sekigahara has hidden info, doesn't it?
It's hidden information.
Okay. So there's that. And then there's, a game like, say, Commands and Colors that just happens to use blocks instead of counters, because why not? So
I actually talked to Richard Borg about that once.
I was going to say, if you're talking to Richard Berg, you got bigger problems than this.
I see dead people.
We miss him. The late legendary Richard Berg. We miss him. No disrespect.
No, that's
definitely. But Richard Borg had said that GMT refused to make miniatures, so that was their compromise.
Oh, I see.
I can understand that. Getting into miniatures is like a complete change for your. It's like you're starting a whole new company, right? It's a completely different business,
right? Yeah.
So,
well, John Longshore plays this really Jenga.
There is an RPG called Dread, which uses Jenga as its randomizer.
Really?
Every time something dreadful happens, you have to pull a block out, and the idea is that the tension escalates. Right. It's a neat idea, actually.
I'm telling you, play Jenga when you're hammered there, and it's the hardest game you've ever played.
Oh, I'll buy that. I absolutely.
I don't do anything with that much manual dexterity when I'm drinking. So
as far as I can tell, the first classic hidden info block game is Quebec 1859 from then Gamma 2 Games, which I'm not sure exactly how that evolution happens, but they basically turn into Columbia games later on.
And what's the year of that?
1973.
It sounds
1972. Right. So it's very early. Gilbert Collins has a video on it, actually, and he's, I think, might have an older copy of it that actually resembles the classic. As far as I can tell, it's still in print, so they're still selling them. Columbia Games continues to be the industry leader in block games, and many of those block games from them specifically are very highly regarded. Julius Caesar's very highly regarded. Hammer of the Scots is very highly regarded.
Richard III has been creeping up a lot too.
Yeah, there's a video game version of that too.
Is this the Julius Caesar you're talking about?
That is the Julius Caesar I'm talking about, and that's a Grant Douglas design, as I recall, by the way.
So, I mean, Grant, where the hell is he? Like, is this guy incognito or something?
No, he's just got a day job. So
yeah, he's a very busy guy.
Yeah,
I met him once at a convention, and he ran the Slapshot tournament in roller skates and wore a referee shirt. So
that's serious.
Hilarious.
He is very active when he can be in cons and stuff.
He's very Canadian, I could tell you.
Well, he is Canadian, I can tell you that. The company is based in Blaine, Washington, which is literally right across the border. You take the one step across the white line on the ground, and you're in Blaine. So
You're talking about Columbia Games.
Yeah, I think they live in Canada, but the office is in Blaine, Washington, and they just travel there when they got to do in-person work.
So Andrew says that Justin Thompson designed Caesar. When I look at it on BGG, both he and Grant are credited, but BGG gets that wrong sometimes. So without a copy to refer to, look, well, you got a copy to refer to, Dan. Do the research while Carl and I talk. So I don't know.
Achilles, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Achilles was saying, nice hat. This is the battleship behind me because we've actually, as the War Game Bootcamp, got to run board games on the Iowa twice.
Well, that's awesome.
Of course.
Oh, it was
Were they
great.
naval war games at least?
Yes, we brought lots of naval war games. There was the Historical Miniature Games Society invited us because they wanted some board game representation. And then the one that's listed behind me was back in May 2017. It was a model shop that wanted board game demos because I guess they sell board games on the side or something. And we got to play up on the deck.
That's pretty awesome. I think Zilla Blitz is threatening to do a B-17 or a target for today on from the belly of an actual B-17, which would be awesome.
Oh, that would be cool.
That would be awesome. I'm waiting for the video. So I've always had the impression, and maybe this is incorrect, that so Columbia did this game called Victory at one point, which was kind of like a World War II block game using the kind of classic block game mechanics, sort of similar to East Front, West Front. But it was just kind of like on this sort of generic World War II landscape, kind of like Tactics 2 or some of the other ones.
Yeah.
So I had the impression that Pacific Victory is just that game on a real map.
Yes, it's the same system or idea of the system, but they decided to do an historical game out of it instead of a fictional one.
And
Victory
Pacific
was one of the
well
very
regarded.
first games that pulled me in to wargaming again.
Yeah, I played it at a demo at a Gen Con. I think it was a Gen Con actually many years ago, and I was like, this is actually pretty cool, but I didn't like the fact that it's on like this fictional geomorphic thing. Not really.
Yeah.
Are these complex games, man?
Generally not.
No. So
most complicated board.
The blocks, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Carl.
Sorry. I was going to just say the blocks have an ABC reference, which means who shoots first.
Yes.
And then you roll the dice for the number of strength points, and you're looking for 5s and 6s. That's it.
And is that their system in all of the block games?
No, they are somewhat. Some of them are different. So the World War II ones, for example, I don't know about Pacific Victory, but the like East Front, West Front, those have a more. They're a little more traditional with a. They don't have a CRT. It's a buckets of dice system, as I recall. It's been a long time since I've owned those.
And the designer is Justin Thompson with Grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, news you can use here on the show.
And what about their combat games?
I didn't buy into that.
I did not either. Crown of Roses is probably the most complicated block game I've ever played. Combat Infantry. That's a pretty new release. I think that might be their newest block game release. And I'm just like, I don't need, I'm sufficiently committed to the tactical World War II type of space right now. So,
yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat myself.
So,
you got a boat?
A very small dinghy, actually.
Don't say dinghy here.
It floats in the bathtub.
Oh, sorry.
Where it's okay. We're on Dan's show. It's okay if we get demonetized this week. On the one hand, I was like complaining about, I got to stick roll these blocks one time, and somebody, it might have been Brant, said, "Hey, shut up! You could be painting miniatures," which is a great point. And furthermore, Commands and Colors, which was the game in question at the time, is the one that you have to put stickers on both sides of the blocks, right? The classic Columbia ones, you just sticker one side. So that's at least a shortcut. I think Wizard Kings is basically that same victory system as well, by the way. And that would work fine. Yes. No problem with that. Put trolls in it or something.
Yeah, we got Stigler saying something important.
I think he's expressing his disgust with block games.
But does this guy like anything?
Yes, he likes Great Battles of the American Civil War and some other things.
Just a few.
Jeff Beeler asked about how Crown of Roses was, and I actually liked it a lot. I mean, it's War of the Roses, right? So it's kind of a reimagining of Kingmaker to some extent. But which is apparently is coming out with a new coming out with a new edition, and then the Queen died, and they had to reschedule their launch because it would have, I guess, thought it to be in poor taste. So there's that. And I think that's coming out from Ariel. Is it Ariel? I don't even remember who was doing it, but I think they've got resurrected somehow.
What, the Mermaid?
Ariel Games.
No.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Walt Disney's Ariel, but anyways.
No, that's a whole different thing.
You know what? I actually played a blog game with my son-in-law this past weekend, and I'm sure everybody's happy. But it was an easy blog game from Worthington called Robin Hood. We wanted to play thematically Robin Hood, and Carl, it did use the ABC combat system, so they actually said they borrowed it from Columbia Games. But the rule book, man. I had a hard time with the rule book.
Yeah, I bounced off hard the first Crown and Roses.
Crown of Roses is a difficult rule book, Frank.
So
for me,
so what do you do? So what do you do? You want to play the game? What do? You don't read the
muscle through it and look stuff up and fix things as you go. That's how we did it.
Jesus.
Yep. Or I'll put it down for a day and then start over. And usually what happens with me, because I have reading issues, kind of like you, Dan, is I'll miss words. So when I reread it, it's suddenly I'll catch that word or phrase or whatever I lost, and it'll suddenly fall all into place.
Okay, I'll give that a try. I had to watch a video, and it was Marco that played me through the rule books, and he even said they said there's areas on the map, but they don't call them areas in the rule book. So it's like, do they mean? So basically, he said just use your brains.
At least they didn't call them squares.
I really dislike when they just use a different term for the same thing that's always been there. I know that
freaks me out, man.
Whatever.
That freaks me out.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie Roberts had an excuse.
What excuse was that?
Because nobody else had done it before. So he was just sticking with calling them squares, even though they were now hexagons.
Oh, he did that?
Yeah. In Gettysburg, second version of Gettysburg. I think it was Gettysburg 63, something like that.
That would have stumped me completely.
They're still called squares in the rules.
I would be like, where are the squares? I don't see it. Can't play. Game's broken.
But I mean, at the time,
you take a step back.
There's like no other publisher doing these things at the time, right? So it was just something that people kind of got a chuckle out over, and they're still called squares, and that's that.
Yeah, but didn't he have a developer for crying out loud?
Oh no, they didn't develop or play test any of that.
They didn't know.
Charles Roberts admitted later on that they did not play test that at all. I agree with Doug, who says that miniatures painting is more craft than art. I believe that to be generally true.
Well, and I will say that I sticker my friends' games because I find stickering relaxing.
I find clip encounters relaxing.
Exactly. Well, I do that too, but I literally have a friend whose hands shake so bad he has problems getting the stickers straight. So I'll sticker his games for him.
I find doing a line off a hooker's ass relaxing.
Say, there's your hookers and blow.
So. There it is. We need a little.
Look, you haven't lived. You haven't lived, friendo.
So to answer that question, I like Crown of Roses quite a bit, actually. I think there's a really good game there. You do kind of have to fight a battle with the rule book before you fight the battles in the War of the Roses, though. So,
did they rewrite that rule book?
Not to
Did
my
somebody
knowledge.
post like a fan one or something?
That's possible. I haven't seen it, but that doesn't mean it ain't there.
Because the guys at Pacificon last week were playing it, and they were holding like a photocopy of something. So,
hey, how
well,
was
I could have? Yeah, tell us about Pacificon.
Yeah. I wanted to know. I didn't know. I
hear it's near the Pacific.
It's slightly near the Pacific. Yes, it's in Santa Clara, which is 30-40 minutes from downtown San Francisco. It's the middle of Silicon Valley, which, being a IT nerd, is great because every other year we drive down to the next egg house to the hotel, and the Computer History Museum is there. So we go through and get to see it.
The computer. Wow, that's gotta be like a party zone, like
computers have been around so long they got history now.
Yeah.
Let's go to the
computer. Well, they start with the activists and they go forward. So there were about 800 attendees is what Gabe told me, the guy who runs it. And he said that's about 2/3 of pre-COVID numbers. So it's coming back.
At Pacificon.
Yes.
We lost part of our game space because the 49ers took it for a team meeting, because that's apparently their hotel. And yeah, so it was a little smaller. The dealer's room was much smaller, but Doc's wife was there, so I talked to her for a while and bought some games.
I've always found that she's very pleasant to interact with.
You're talking about Doc Cummings?
Yeah, his wife. He was at Consum World.
I mean, they're in Bakersfield, so it makes sense that they would show up at that event, right?
Yeah, it's convenient for them, and not to toot our own horn, they like the War Game Boot Camp because we kind of drive sales. Good. Demo game, people will go, oh, I want that now. So
yeah, go buy it. That's great.
I help sell. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Jeff is asking you a question there. Best things you saw for sale in the dealer's room.
I got a copy of the D-Day Quad Deluxe because I don't own any of those games. So I kind of, I was going to buy Wehrmacht Rhine, the Goss, because I have an older version, but I haven't played the game yet. So I said, I'm going to start with Lucky Forward when I get to it, and then I'll
Lucky Forward
go back and buy the other games.
Is the one that has the updated rule book, but you can download the updated rule book. But what you can't download are the updated charts, which are much better laid out than the old charts. And I believe Decision was selling them as like a charts bundle at one point, but then they sold out of it. So I don't know if that's still unavailable. That's unfortunate.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see that there.
You spoke about the Goss system.
Not very block-like, but yeah, it's a
it's not blocky at all.
Yeah, no. But I'm saying there's Stephen Dolges. He's doing a Goss playthrough of I don't know what. But now, Carl, since you like these massive war games like Ardy, how many systems you want to learn, for God's sakes? Like, what? And the system themselves, is there any crossover?
Yes. And everyone I'm interested in is what I want to learn. So, when when BCS came out, I went to BCS, and then I discovered Goss, and then I discovered, some other ones. But there's a lot of crossover. There's Zox. Movement doesn't change a lot. You just got to look at exceptions or special units that have different kinds of movement. Terrain usually ends up being the same in a lot of these games.
So then what's different? What's different between a Goss system and a non-Goss system?
Um,
Big feature, in my opinion, is actually the way the sequence of play is structured.
Exactly.
You actually move units one at a time. You can't just necessarily move units through your own friendly units, because your motorized units will block the road. And as I recall, the motorized units, you move all the motorized units first, and then you move all the non-motorized movements. And then there's like road movement, and then what used to be called, which I think they changed the terminology on this, tactical non-road movement, which basically means you're just walking around, not on the road, but it's a leg type of movement. So, but then you get to Zocs work differently in Gauss as well. There's no Zocs formally, but what you have are like engagement halts, where if you hit a hex, you move into a hex that can be spotted by active enemy artillery. You are stopped in that hex. So there's a number of fairly neat features.
Well, that makes sense,
Yeah,
though.
what drew me to it was a guy wrote a review on Board Game Geek, and he was talking about all these cool little features, like taking certain hexes that have spotting towers where you can see farther for your artillery spotting, and different things that were like, wow, that they don't do that in a lot of other games, but you see it in the movies and in the books all the time. They'll fight over a church, or they'll fight over something because it's an observation post that's really valuable to both sides. And so they've added those kind of things into it.
Yeah, and there's hexes with like it's a church steeple, or it's a hill, or whatever it is, that are those observation point hexes. To answer Jeff's question, the best and cheapest learn to play option from for Gauss is Hanut, Battle for France, which was in World at War magazine. It's a very stripped down version of the system. It's out of print now, so you might pay a little more for it, but it's still going to be cheaper than any of the big box games, which are all kind of pricey, to be frank.
Yeah, but they're all big box games. I would recommend Lucky Forward if you're going to go with a bigger package.
I'd agree with that.
One.
So,
it's got a lot of smaller stuff in it.
In your experience, Gauss rules on a level 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 10. What are you talking about here?
That's, well, I would say an 8, maybe a 9, depending.
Holy moly! So,
and hang on, before that's a subjective question, because there is so many exceptions and little things that you don't need to read before you play the game. I mean, the rule book, the entire front of the rule book is talking about things that are special cases and different things that, to be honest, I wish they'd put like in a lookup section instead of trying to just spill the rules out like that.
So let me
if you started with Hanut as an example, it's like maybe a 6. They strip it down and they just show you the basics. Once you know Hanut, the rest of the rules are just remembering small little details. That's all.
Okay, so let me
the logistics stuff, which is relatively involved.
Let me make a stupid observation here now. We've got the Gauss system. We got the Gauss system. We got the whatever BSS, the OSS, and the
EIO.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So why hasn't someone? Because you just mentioned in the Gauss system, if you walk into a hex where you're spotted, where it can be spotted by artillery, you have to stop. Well, for me that makes sense, because if you're walking into a hex and some guy spots you, he's gonna radio in artillery, blast them. That makes sense to me. So why isn't there a rule book that's logical with all these things in it?
So part of that's a function of scale. Okay, so if you have you're not going to have artillery spotting rules in a game where the units are mostly divisions, for example. Gauss is a battalion level game. It says on the box that it's a battalion level game, but units go down to as far as platoons. So you could break units down, and you are encouraged to do that. You're encouraged to say, hey, I have this tank battalion that's attached to the big red one. I'm going to split that up into companies and then send those companies around to do armor support for infantry, right? Which is a thing that actually happens. So a lot of but you're not going to have that in a division scale game, right? So to answer Jeff's question, Hanut sold fast out everywhere. Gauss has a pretty abstract air system. It's just air points that you allocate around to different functions. There is a road interdiction, for example, is one of the big ones in Atlantic Wall, which you obviously want to do as the Allies, but you kind of have to figure out where you put those points, right? Because it's not just one air interdiction pool. There were air zones where you're actually doing it more or less by map.
So, I mean, Doug, I didn't want to say ASL, but Doug Sunset brings it up. He says it's called ASL. Now, you were talking about scale. ASL is a tactical system, right? Mm-hmm. You can't use the ASL games in an operational type a game.
No, and you wouldn't want to, right? No. Because
okay, gotcha. Okay,
they fill their roles in different ways, right? So you want tactical, you want to, I mean, for me, it's what I'm in the mood for and what I want to simulate, what I want to play with. If I want tons of logistics and important objective hexes like steeple towers for observation and stuff, Gauss is my go-to game, right? And I don't mind the complexity because that's what I want to do, right? I want to experience those things. I don't mind the extra rule overhead. Other people are like, no, that's not for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. Their opinions. I mean, what works for me is not going to work for everybody. And to be honest, half my gaming group, I keep saying, hey, let's pull out Gauss. And they all look at me going, nope.
Well, to be fair, and I was interested in your answer because I was thinking through the same when Dan asked you on a scale of 1 to 10 how complex it is, 8 or 9, and I think that's accurate. But you're reading through that book and it feels like a 10 or possibly an 11. This one may go to 11. But once you actually sit down and start playing it, it's not as complicated as you think it is. A lot of the complexity is not done in the moment-to-moment gameplay. It's done in the logistics system, which you do daily, which means every 3 turns. So, right. I mean, it is a detailed game, and it's still complicated, but it's not as complicated as you might think just reading the big rule book. It is dense.
William, what are you doing in Guatemala? I thought you were from Ottawa.
I mean, I'd have got out of Ottawa, too.
I'm Guatemala adjacent. I was in Nicaragua, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, you can talk about the spider stories you have.
Look, no one wants to hear the spider story.
Okay, are we done with the block discussion? No.
I don't know. Do we have anything else to say about block
For
game?
God's sakes. Hey, okay, blocks.
Carl has something to say about blocks.
War game blocks. Now, is it basically this? Is it a system?
That's a mechanic.
It's a mechanic. It's like CDG.
Yeah, exactly. So they're all a little bit different. Some of them are quite different. But it's a specific mechanic, which you could combine it with a CDG, which Chrono Roses kind of does, actually. Yep. It's kind of both a CDG and a block game, which I can't think of another example off the top of my head. There probably are some.
Strike of the Eagle by Academy Games.
Good call. I haven't played that.
I mentioned it last night on your channel because we were talking about the Russo-Polish War.
Yeah, there's not a ton of games on the topic, but that is another one. It is, and I had thought that was. I think I was mentally putting that into the Conflict of Heroes system, and it's not. Apparently, that covers the whole conflict. Well, so the Russo-Polish War, anyway, not the whole Russian Civil War. That's one part of.
Right.
The Tarawa game. So that's got its own. I don't know what that mechanic's called. That Tarawa 1943 from.
You talking about Worthington?
Yeah.
I don't know if
there's a name for that mechanic where you're kind of advancing along tracks. It's not States of Siege though, which is another game in which you're advancing along tracks. I'd like to know what that mechanic's called.
So I'm thinking there's only really 2 different mechanics. Yes, David, I did order the PQ-17 expansion. It comes with the new clarified rulebook. So, but you can download that clarified rulebook already from GMT if you need it. But I saw them play it at, where was I? It wasn't Pacificon. It was somewhere else. And I totally cannot remember where. And it looks like a really cool expansion. So I'm definitely getting it. But what I was going to say about PQ-17 is PQ-17 is one of the few block games that does not use blocks for strength. The block numbers are used for detection levels. You rotate the counters for damage, and the counters stay on a display off.
Yeah, so it's a task force mechanic. The task force markers that you're moving around on the map are the blocks, and then you have an off-map display which contains all the actual ships. And you rotate the counters in the off-map display to reflect hits on the ships rather than rotating the block itself. I have had PQ-17 for a long time. I'd love to play it, but it's unsoloable, so I've never really tried.
It's you know, it's got a mixed bag because I played it once a long time ago at GMT with Rick Billingsley, a fellow I knew from Utah. And it's a lot of drawing cards and nothing's happening because you're searching, right? So you're always trying to keep things, you know, so your blocks are with their blocks, and then you flip a bunch of cards, and then the cards tell you if the search is working or not. And then you have to rotate the block every time they get a search, and they get closer and closer. And so if you're not interested in that kind of mechanic, I've seen a lot of people kind of bounce off that. So
I believe that.
But yeah, I think it was interesting and fun. And when you engage, it becomes, you know, just kind of like a lot of other naval games, you line them up on the battle board and, you know, do your thing. But yeah, and then I have a bunch of block games, but I can't think of any other ones that use blocks in a different sense than strength.
I mean, the Fast Action Battle series uses them to reflect strength, uses the block sides.
Yeah.
I had Fast Action Battle Sicily at one point.
Oh, I have all 3 of those.
Yeah, other than the other type of block game, which just uses blocks to reflect position and or orientation, and or unit type, right? So we'd have, you know, not only Commands and Colors, but the Rachel Simmons games, Napoleon's Triumph, which apparently is being redone, by the way, and the Guns of Gettysburg and that kind of stuff.
Were they doing Napoleon's Triumph, or are they doing Montenegro first? I heard
it's called Napoleon at Marengo now, apparently. There's a thread on BGG about it today, or I believe it's called Triumph at Marengo, actually. So, and I'm actually reading a book about Marengo at this exact moment. Well, not at this exact moment, but right now I'm reading a book about Marengo. So it's an interesting campaign.
Okay. So Mike Buttitelli points out that Fields of Despair uses blocks a little bit differently, and in that they have larger numbers. Because Kirk Keckley, the designer, didn't want, once you knew what the block was, for it to be predictable. Like 1 through 4, you know it's 2 hits, therefore it's a 2. I know he went to some trouble to make it like 20s and higher numbers so that it was harder to track, was his explanation, he told me.
That's a very good game too, by the way.
Oh yeah, very good game. I don't know if Diplomacy counts as a block game.
Well, that's another one where you're just marking positions with them, really.
Yeah, because I mean, it came with counters at one point. And now it's blocks, and then there was something else.
So is this the Lou Pulsifer thing that's got like blocks and counters and miniatures or some such foolishness? I don't remember.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like play the way you want, and he has all the stuff in there, which sounds to me just like what I want is to pay more for it because it's got all the pieces, all different, even different kinds of pieces.
And I can't lift the box.
Stalingrad
that
Besieged.
it?
That is the game I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's three ways to play this. But why would you want to play it 3 different ways? The same game.
There's a great to say quote at Marengo where he's talking to Napoleon and he says something to the effect of the battle is totally lost, but there's still time to win another one. So, and of course, Desay dies at Marengo too. So, and is probably the biggest factor in the fact that the French won it too.
Going back to this game, Lou, I don't know much about Lou Pulsifer, but he's been around.
Lou's been around for literally forever. And he's had some very interesting things to say over the years. I've honestly never played any of his games, so I know him more as a commentator, in which role he has said some very interesting and insightful things. But his big claim to fame is Britannia, which was it's been produced by a couple of different publishers now.
And again, why make a game that you can play 3 different ways? Cards, chits, and blocks, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the appeal there. I'd rather make a decision and go with one and not have the consumer pay for all 3 kinds of pieces in the box. There are also war games. I can think of a couple examples where they split the difference between counters with NATO symbols and counters with icons on them. The Compass Games reprint of Barlev is like that. There's two full sets of counters in there.
Yep.
One with NATO symbols, one with it's a beautiful game too, actually.
I actually prefer non-NATO symbols.
I prefer NATO symbols.
Yeah, and
to be honest.
Yeah.
But it depends. Right? If I played a game with ancient Romans, I don't want NATO symbols.
Right.
That would be weird.
It would be
and
weird.
What is the
but you know what?
For...
I bet somebody did it.
I'm sure, but I don't know NATO symbol for phalanxes.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I mean, all the old not all, but some of the old SPI Civil War games had NATO symbols. But the iconography, some of the iconography actually predates the Civil War and tracing back to the Napoleonic period. So the slash for cavalry is the bandolier that the cavalrymen wore. The X for infantry is the 2 crossed, whatever they called that thing. And then the ball for artillery is obviously the cannonball.
I like what John Longshore said. He's trading blocks for sheep.
Blocks for sheep, Bueller.
But to kind of say what you were talking about, Dan, about the one game with the 3 different things, I see that you would pick one that you probably like the best, and why would you play any of the others?
Yeah, I never touched the other ones, and then you got useless pieces that you paid for.
I mean,
in the box.
Yeah,
exactly.
But
hey, Trevor.
And that's fine. I mean, are you? I mean, if we look at it as an experiment to see if Worthington, it's a Worthington game, right, Dan?
This is a Worthington game, yeah.
So as an experiment, hey, why not try it? But
it costs.
I don't know. It's 70, 80 bucks. I don't know.
Most
of Worthington's games are a little high, but not what I call outrageously expensive. If you're getting the play value out of it. I mean, if you play the game 3 times, I think it's paying for itself.
They're having a couple of sales on games now.
Hell, you pay $800 for a copy of Case Blue. Play it once, you got your money's worth, right?
How long does that take? 2 years?
We played it for about a year and a half.
There you go.
So,
yeah, it's like a vacation.
So yeah.
Pay $800 for a vacation.
I mean, we could at some point. We've talked about this before, and we'll surely talk about it again. Maybe we make a show about it of the cost of war games. Right? Everybody thinks they're too expensive. Me too, right? But you know, that's really only true if you're buying them and they're sitting around, right? If you're buying them and it's $150 game, but you play it, who cares, right? Maybe don't buy 5 of those and have 4 sitting on the shelf. Inferno on the Volga. That's from
Vento Nuovo.
Vento Nuovo, yeah.
And that's a block game. And I played it. I remember.
Yeah, good catch. I didn't think they're block games. Their block games are pretty much classic Columbia block mechanic too, as far as I can tell. But I've never played any of their games either.
Germany 1914 is diceless.
Interesting.
So
but
I guess,
it's still blocks. Interesting.
Same thing, but it's diceless. I have not got to play that one yet, but I want to try that one.
Where's a good place to get Vento Nuovo products here in the U.S.?
Noble Knight.
Noble Knight.
Noble Knight. Yeah. Okay.
You know what?
I've got a few there.
Did you check out their sales?
I normally
They're having a huge sale.
They're having a huge sale.
Huge
sale. They took away the RD Dookie and replaced it with a sale.
I guess their what do you call it? Their margin of profit ain't that big, man.
Well, maybe, but like the sale on this Leningrad 41 Kickstarter edition, their price on it is $60. And I mean, for a new copy, that ain't bad, I don't think.
It's their shipping that just kills everybody else.
Well, if you're in the U.S., then you're fine. But in the U.S., if you spend more than I think $75, or maybe it's 150, I don't know, they'll ship for free. So,
but
I don't know if
3 games instead of 2.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean that's why, right?
So Trevor asks, "What is our requested block game at the War Game Boot Camp?" It's not really a block game. It's a lot of Atlantic Chase, but I know that doesn't count. I would say the most requested would be Pacific Victory.
Interesting.
I get that a lot.
Very interesting. Abraxas MF mentions Triumph and Tragedy. That's a terrific game. Takes kind of a long time to play, but the Conquest of Consequences, the Pacific version, is very good too. I got to play that at Buckeye Game Fest, and it's great. I thought it was going to be pretty unengaging based on just assumptions that I made about the scale. No, it wasn't at all. It wasn't boring. It plays really well.
Andrew,
it's very different.
Andrew, why are you mentioning the TSWW? What is that, Artie?
I interpret that as meaning the Second World War series from Diffraction Entertainment / The Knowledge Company. Okay, so $225 Canadian plus GST and PST, so add 15%. Yeah, whatever that provincial tax is.
That's a good. It depends on which one they're talking about. That's a good price.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it might be a good price.
Can I do East Coast cons? I have thought about that several times. I just need to pick one. I think I've thought about WBC or maybe Origins or something like that. Do a once a year kind of thing. Okay, Carl, if you go to WBC, trans coast thing, I'm gonna go to WBC. How's that? Okay, everyone heard that, right? So
that's what I told him too. And did he go? No, he didn't go.
What happened? What happened? I didn't have any money.
Well, I didn't have any money either. We bought a house, so exactly the same thing happened. Why did you take my money, Dan?
I say we start a GoFundMe campaign to bring ARDWULF and Dan to WBC.
So on the one hand, me going to WBC is totally doable, right? Even if it's just like a day trip type of thing. And just this year, the timing was just horrific for that. My grail con is Conson World Expo in Tempe.
Right.
And it's an expensive trip. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well,
the flight and
to
the
be
hotel
honest,
and all
once
that.
you cross the Rockies, either way, it just becomes,
that's true.
exponentially higher. So Jeff is asking, is there an East-West gamers can get together? My take on that might be something like BGG Con in Texas. That seems kind
or
of
Consim
like a good
South or whatever that's called. Consim Dallas.
Yeah.
Maybe that. I mean, there's that. You could get probably pretty decent flights to where's BGG Con in Texas?
Dallas. So it's right into Dallas Fort Worth, which is reasonable.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. But if I'm going to go all that way, I want to play one game the whole time. So, and CSW Dallas is not it's not long enough for me to do. Well, it is, but I'm can't get as much game in, right?
Yeah, it's like only a weekend.
It's like I think it's 4 days,
like
something like that.
It's 4 days.
Yeah,
I find it strange he does 10 days in Tempe, but only 4 days right next to his house.
Well, it has a big run in as long either. It's only run. I mean, it's run 3 times or something like that. So there we go. Buy some t-shirts. I added a new t-shirt. It's pretty cool. Check it out.
Sorry.
So.
Oh wait, you can't see it with.
There you go. Yes, I can. Even though we're getting a little bit of blue, green screen problem.
Blue, the blue screen.
Very stylish.
Trevor,
maybe I should start some.
Trevor mentioned Dice Tower West, which reminds me I have to call them because they have not contacted us if they want the War Game Boot Camp yet or not.
Well, that would be
but
crazy.
Vegas is another option. Vegas is cheaper to fly into normally.
I did not know this, but that's good. I mean, that makes it normally cheaper to fly on those airlines. And I loathe air travel, but if I'm going to travel by air, I'd rather travel Southwest. So,
fortunately, my wife will not go because she will not step foot on a Southwest. She used to work for United and she does not like them. Not because they're dangerous or anything, just a personal thing, I guess.
I understand. Yes, you can. And you can in Europe as well, I'll point out. Internationally beyond that, I'm not sure. But they made me set Euro prices as well. John Longshore says Detroit because he lives right there. But it's not a bad necessarily location for Chicago, right? I mean,
no, is there a con there?
I'm sure there is, but it's not one of the big ones. Until such time as Gen Con gets tired of dealing with the state of Indiana and moves to Chicago.
Oh, I didn't mention David Atkinson and Luke Gygax were at Pacificon.
Peter Atkinson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did I say that wrong?
Okay, sorry.
Atkinson. Peter Atkinson.
Who I think was a British guy that made a show on squirrels or something like that. But I've never met Luke, but I've met Peter a couple of times actually. Nice guy.
Yep.
And he owns Gen Con, so that's cool. Played a game of Sagas of Icelanders with Peter at Origins.
He owns Gen Con?
He owns Gen Con.
Yeah.
But he did own Wizards of the Coast before he sold it to Hasbro.
Yeah. So that's how he bought Gen Con.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever you're talking about is like he's happy.
Oh yeah, Pete's doing good. It's all good.
How old's Pete?
He was playing.
He's probably about my age.
Yeah, he's up there. But he played Titan with the owner of Pacificon. They were all playing a big Titan game.
Oh, that's a fun game too.
Yeah, I've never played it. So
I'm of mixed feelings about the. So I think Valley Games did a version of it. With updated art and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, I can't get past, I don't want to like not have the Dave Trampier art from the original, right? I've got the original. I haven't played it in 15 years, but it's a terrific game. Takes too long to play. Jeff Beeler mentions Yukon. This is primarily, I've always heard of Yukon as a RPG focused convention. I don't know how true that is. It's in, as I recall, it's in Ann Arbor. Chaosium Con, which just started like last year, is in Ann Arbor as well.
Okay.
Yes,
oh,
as I
Dan.
said.
Oh yeah.
Here's another block game.
Dunkirk, Frank. So
Christopher-
was that another Worthington item?
Yeah.
Yeah. Christopher Press said he'd buy a pipe with no enemies here on it, and he doesn't even smoke.
There you go.
I'm not a good businessman.
You got another revenue stream right there, man.
I'm an artist.
He's used to not eating. He doesn't need that food. He can just go scavenge for mushrooms in the woods.
Yeah, you don't eat for
true,
days.
Yeah. I always hear that. I'm an artist, and I think of what was that in The Departed that Jack Nicholson said when he's talked about John Lennon? Give me a tuba, and I'll get something out of it.
Well, yeah.
So yeah. Well,
Dan. Gotta get that Fokker Circus merch going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see what I can do about merchandising. I mean, I'd like a T-shirt for myself. So you see, what kind of a businessman is that?
Yeah, I actually made a Traveler shirt, and then I scrapped it. Nobody ever bought them. I never released the design, but I liked the shirt, and I wasn't comfortable with either releasing it without Mark Miller's approval or approaching Mark about it. So I canned it instead. But I might make one for myself. Oh dear. Dan is, I don't know if you know, but Dan is actually 4'1", so he only looks fat.
Oh, I got a new nickname at work. The girls, because I always call the girls Rocky or a little guy or something like that. And yeah, whatever. And
is the nickname that fucking guy? Oh, it's that fucking guy again.
No, they called me Mad Dog.
TFG, that fucking
Mad Dog Dan. That's pretty fantastic, I gotta tell you.
And you know what? It fits. I've seen him go off. So yeah, that fits.
That totally fits. There you go.
Few wargamers have missed a meal. That is true.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or a good snack at least.
Okay. So Mike Anthony says that this idea of having the multiple ways to play in the Worthington game, Stalingrad Besieged, was Worthington's idea, not Lou Pulsifer's. That makes sense. I mean, it's kind of a decision on how to market the thing, right? And as an experiment, I can respect it, but I don't see personal value in it either. So,
yeah, that's what they called me, Mad Dog Vachon, but that was too long, so they just broke it down to Mad Dog.
Oh, is this a French nursing home?
Yeah, it's a French nursing home, and we are in Quebec here, there, Artie.
I was just wondering.
Was that a Canadian wrestler or something? Or is that Beeler talk about something else?
No, this is something else. Okay. I assume this was, yeah. I assume this was.
Because if you're stealing wrestlers' names, I'm sure their lawyers are showing up saying, no, you can't use that.
Well, if the guy's been dead for 50 years, that's probably not as much of an issue.
Oh, okay.
$40. Holy moly.
So T-shirt elephant, $40 Canadian. That's like what, $3.99 USD?
Not even.
So something like that. So yeah,
That.
This is true. Just try to buy war games with your food stamps at your friendly FLGS. So Magic Dan's special mushroom blend.
Hey man, yeah, I'm all over. I'm a Renaissance man. I'm everywhere.
Obviously, yeah. We've got these. Dan is the Walter White of magic mushrooms. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Tread carefully.
I'm
Tread
just saying.
carefully. Oh man. But I look on an ADD subject. I'm playing games, man.
So that's good. Andrew, and maybe somebody else has asked what your favorite war game is, or war games, right? I mean, if you ask me, I'll tell you a different thing each week.
Okay, my favorite. Well, you know, yeah, but I really like RAF, man. The Battle
RAF's
of Britain by Decision Games.
The legendary John Butterfield.
Yeah, and the thing is,
I got to pull that one out.
I played them with STUKAJOE's flip cards, and it's brainless. He's made it so like it's so easy, man.
Yep, huge play, huge play aid. It adds tremendously to the experience of learning that game, or any other game that anybody's done that for. To be honest,
I got that Legion Games Hill of Doves, and it came with STUKAJOE's card.
Ooh,
really
good way to go, Legion Wargame.
Yeah, built into the game itself, and I was very impressed. Very impressed.
And it makes the game look. You don't look at the rule book. It's just flip that card, read that sequence of whatever on that card, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You just do what the card says. It makes it super easy. I think somebody, I don't know if it was Joe or not, but somebody did ones for D-Day at Omaha Beach as well. So, tremendous idea.
Who knew STUKAJOE knew what he was doing? I mean, you know.
Who knew STUKAJOE being a lawyer had all this time?
He's a lawyer?
Yeah. So I don't know if I mentioned this on stream or not, but so whenever you're like moving war games around, you're always afraid you're going to have that one war game catastrophe where you drop the box or whatever, and the counter trays all explode, counters go everywhere, right? So I just packed up 400 some games, you know, and moved them. One game that happened to one game. Guess what game it was? We're in
a
Europe.
Really big one.
We're in Europe.
Yeah.
But the counters everywhere.
Ouch.
It's like, oh my god.
Did you? And it was in the flats. So did you hurt the plastic?
No, it's
okay.
That copy. So what I didn't realize was that I was like in like mid sort 10 months ago, and I had some counter trays in the box, but I had some other counter trays that were in Europe counters that were outside the box. And when I pulled them off the shelf, they just fell apart and fucking counters everywhere. So,
man, I wish you would have recorded. You should have recorded
2 hours to clean that shit up. Yeah, no kidding.
See, my biggest fear when I move is not dropping a game. It's not labeling the box correctly and losing some games to like my wife's craft room or something and never seeing them again or something.
Yeah. Oh, does your wife craft is my copy of Red Storm in your wife's craft room by any chance? Because it's not in my wife's craft room. I can tell you that. I still can't find that thing.
I'll look for you, but don't hold out.
I don't know what's going on with that. I know like 3 people whose copies of Red Storm specifically have gone missing. There's like a Red Storm fairy that's taken them or something like that.
Man.
Maybe they got sucked into the dryer. I don't know.
Maybe.
That voided there where your socks go.
Maybe.
This is more fun than snorting a line off a hooker's ass.
And we stuck, you know, but more to the topic than usual. I blame Carl for that, for this planning that we did.
I somehow draw that, you know.
In the 3 minutes between when we figured out what the topic was and when the show started.
But it's a good topic, man.
So yeah, it is, and we should, you know, revisit that idea. With, you know, maybe a parallel discussion about some other stuff.
You know what? Would it be politically incorrect to talk about Saki rule books?
No, not at all. I think there's plenty of examples. No. I mean, I can give you several examples off the top of my head.
Designers even say that I've had designers say, "Oh, my rule book's terrible."
Well, maybe we should do a show like that, man.
John Zinzer of AEG once told me, we were at a party and I was talking to him, and he once told me that as a designer, the one thing he doesn't want to do is to write the rule book. He wants to design the game and have somebody else write the rule book. Because too much of it's in his head.
For John Zinzer.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I worked for I was demo guy for Legend of the Five Rings.
Okay. Yeah, this was right in the era where that was still pretty big, actually. And there's still people that play that thing.
Oh, yeah. There's a new Fantasy Flight version where they changed a lot of stuff. So
I have
it's
seen
not
that.
exactly
I
the
haven't
same.
played it. I only played the old one.
It's interesting, but it's very different. So it's not bad, just very different.
Mm-hmm. This is
I
absolutely
agree.
correct.
Yeah, and one of GMT's best moves was getting Kai Jensen and Jason Carr to start doing all that quality control stuff that they're starting to do. The Jason Carr stuff is just now coming into where the public is seeing it. But we were at the last GMT warehouse, and he was talking about all the quality control and all the stuff they're going to do.
Oh, I mean, that's just something we should talk about at some point with some actual, industry experts and stuff on. The design to publication pipeline in this hobby is very long, man. I mean, made some decisions, about how they wanted to improve their quality of production, and it's taken them like 3 years to start to see the results of games that have gotten more playtesting, and we're just starting to see it now. To say nothing of other things, just you pick on decisions specifically, things like layout and stuff like that. I mean, there are I have a number of decision games where I open the box, I pick up the rule book, and I look at it, and I said, this was laid out in Microsoft Word. I can tell.
Yep.
It's that kind of game, right? It's a ton of them like that, where they're getting like, I don't know who's doing it now, but they're like doing it in some, whoever's doing it now is much better at it. Let me put it that way. So, it's not necessarily the publisher or whoever it is makes a decision to make some kind of production change or quality control change or whatever it is. And it might take 2 to 4 years before you start to see the results of that in the actual output, because so much stuff is already so far along in the pipeline. They're not going to like call the printer in China and say, hey, you stop the presses like J. Jonah Jameson and have them, lay the rule book out again.
Okay, we're 2 minutes over our time. Who's
oh,
paying
dear.
now?
Dan.
Who's paying now?
All right. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you all next week at my place. Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, it was fun.
Welcome to everything you wanted to know about war games, but were afraid to ask. A special show. It's a Noble Night show where we feature Noble Nighters, and also this guy, and this guy, who make up,
And I'm Grant.
and this guy, who make up these guys.
Really? These sons of b****, they've been making us look bad for like 2 years now.
You think that's funny?
We have Jess from Noble Night. We might have Dan Leader from Noble Night, but we don't know. We'll be talking about new codes, no codes, what the hey is going on codes, and also we ain't gonna talk about Carl Kreider, neither Stedler. So welcome to everything you wanted to know about war games, but were afraid to ask. The Artie and Danny Show!
And I'm Grant.
Oh, crud.